Hello and welcome to today's weather forecast video for Monday, March 20th, 2023. I am Climate Data Report. Starting off here with the National Infrared Satellite picture, you will see relatively quiet conditions in the east. That coastal system that was potentially going to be a problem in the east, here's what's left of it. Nothing. Off of the Carolinas. It's going to quickly push out to sea, but you do see on the west coast that there is a rather active picture, and as we have been saying, there's another big storm system coming for California. Taking a look at the radar picture, nothing really in the east, just a few snow showers, rain or snow showers up in Maine. In the mountainous regions of the Rockies, there is rain, snow, and wintry precipitation ongoing, where you do have some winter weather advisories and even winter storm warnings. In the southeast, one more night of cold weather is expected, with temperatures at or below freezing. Therefore, some freeze warnings and freeze watches have been yet again posted. You also see on the west coast there are some wind advisories and high wind warnings that are now up. On the severe weather threat, we do have multiple days of severe weather expected. First off, there is none for today, but there is a marginal risk of severe weather on Wednesday for portions of Missouri and into Iowa. After that, all eyes will turn on Thursday to Texas and portions of Oklahoma, where there is severe weather expected. Right now, it's 15% chance. Would not be surprised if that gets upgraded to an enhanced risk, as all modes of severe weather are expected. Then on day 5 of the forecast, which I believe this is for Friday, there is another severe weather threat, which will be from eastern Texas on up into Tennessee, through Louisiana, Mississippi, and portions of Arkansas. There's even some indications on the models that this could spread even further north into Kentucky, but that's really going to depend where the warm front boundary actually sets up. Alrighty, we do have a couple records to report on. Yesterday, a record daily low maximum temperature was set at Tuscaloosa. What that means is the high temperature for that day was the lowest ever recorded for that particular day. The high temperature yesterday at Tuscaloosa was 47 degrees. This breaks the old record low maximum temperature for March 19th, which was 49 degrees, set back in 1956. Out of all the records yesterday, there was another one in particular that really did stand out. This one was in Riverton, Wyoming. A record low temperature of negative 17 degrees was set at Big Piney, Wyoming yesterday. This breaks the old record of negative 2 set in 1980. They don't only break the record, they smashed the record by 15 degrees, which is just truly remarkable for this late in the season. Alright, let's start off with the West Coast today, because we do want to talk about that West Coast system that's coming on shore. As you can see today, for the most part, is quiet. Maybe some showers, maybe some snow showers in the mountainous region. But look what happens as we get into early tomorrow morning. Here comes the next big weather maker. By sunrise, already, you're going to be having or experiencing some rainy conditions, and that rain is going to get heavier throughout the day. Generally from Central California on southward is where the heaviest rainfall is expected. If you're in Central California, you could really be dealing with heavy rain throughout much of the day tomorrow. You do get a lull in the afternoon in Southern California, but watch what the HURRA model does next. Another round of heavy showers, squally-like weather, comes on shore, and that lasts through much of tomorrow night, with finally some diminishing in the activity as you get into Wednesday morning. But you're still going to be dealing with showers on Wednesday. The mountainous region, this is heavy snow for you. 1 to 3 feet of snow possible. Some areas could see localized mounts above 3 feet, and heavy rainfall. Yeah, look what the HURR's putting out here. It's actually showing in Southern California now 2 to 4 inches of rain, with isolated amounts of 5 plus in the mountain areas. So that is a lot of precipitation. It's going to aggravate the already oversaturated ground, and the flood threat, it's there again. Another threat that is there is the wind. Let's take a look at the HURR wind output. And as you can see here, this doesn't show it too well, but it does get the point across. And look what happens as we get into tomorrow night or tonight into tomorrow. And you can see here, the winds really do pick up, sustained 30-mile-per-hour winds in Southern California. As the system finally comes on shore, you actually get a period where winds sustained in the mountains up to 50 miles per hour. Gusts could be anywhere from 60 to 70 miles per hour with this system. And this really lasts through much of the day on Tuesday. Finally calms down a little bit on Wednesday, with Wednesday afternoon probably being a quieter period in the wind front. But nonetheless, this is going to be a windy system, just as it is a very wet system. Let's take a look at the RGM here. Something I want to point out on the RGM model. First off, let's take a look at tonight. As you can see here, here's the highs for today. The highs do get into the upper 40s and low 50s across much of the east in the Mid-Atlantic region. But watch what happens from the Mid-Atlantic on south. Look at this. You can see the cold weather does persist, and it's another cold night tonight. You can see the freezing line. Yes, it gets all the way down into the Florida Panhandle, which is really impressive for this time of year. So the freeze warnings that are issued for tonight, they'll probably be justified just based on looking at model output. It is going to get below freezing again in the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Looking beyond tonight into tomorrow, we do see that there is a warm-up that starts to occur in the east and southeast. Look here in Texas. You do have temperatures getting back close to the 80-degree mark for parts of Texas on up into the plains, where Kansas, you're looking at about 65 to 70 degrees tomorrow. And as we continue into Wednesday, this warm-up continues to build, and it does start to press eastward. Look at this. Middle 80s for much of Texas on Wednesday. However, north of Tennessee and North Carolina in the east, it does get into the 50s, but the really warm weather does hold at bay for one more day, and Thursday's the day that it really starts to make its journey northward, as a boundary will eventually set up behind us. And you can see here, there is a cold frontal boundary that sets up from Oklahoma on up into portions of Pennsylvania and New York State. That's when the severe weather starts to come into the play in Texas, and this boundary really doesn't get too far south. It will get hung up over the east. Let's take a look at the Canadian model, since we were already using the RGM. You can see here comes our warm front on Wednesday. It does try to lift northward, and there will be some showers around in the mid-Atlantic region with that warm front. But then here comes the cold front aspect, and here it is on Thursday evening. You can see there's some severe wicks from Texas, northern Texas, into portions of Oklahoma, and this boundary is slow to move. It does almost stall over the Tennessee Valley, through Kentucky, and into the Ohio Valley. And along this region, there is the threat of flash flooding, as we are going to see multiple areas of energy right along this system. The precipitation along the system does weaken some as it gets into the mid-Atlantic region, like southeast Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, D.C. area. But I will tell you this, the models have been trending wetter in that region, so it's something we will have to watch. As we get into Friday evening, here's the next round of severe weather. Will it push into Kentucky or not? That remains to be seen. It could shift a little bit further north. But one thing that is for certain, anywhere just north of this warm front, you are going to see heavy rainfall and convection riding along this system. So the flash flood threat continues into Friday evening. This system will eventually try to push east, but a low pressure system will start forming over Illinois and eventually pushing into the Great Lakes. So it doesn't really clear through as a warm front, or I should say as a cold front. As you can see here, it actually tries to form a secondary low off the Delmarva, but that doesn't really get going till it gets to about down East Maine on Saturday evening. And finally by Sunday we clear this out in the east, but look what happens here. There's already indications of another system by next Monday. So this is overall a very active pattern moving forward. How much rainfall are we talking on the Canadian model? Check this out. From Oklahoma through to southwest Pennsylvania, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain. There could be isolated amounts where training sets up of 5 inches of rain. Let's take a look at the WPC. WPC shows a wide area from Texas on up into western Pennsylvania of 1.5 to 3 inches of rain. Anywhere in this red here that you see, which is from Illinois, Indiana, even into Ohio, across much of northwest Kentucky, yes, those are 4+ inch amounts. Then you can see on the west coast, all of the west coast is expecting at least 1 inch of rainfall along the coastal areas, with many areas seeing 2+ inches of rain, with the jackpot area being in Southern California, where they actually have a 3 to 5 inch area and even an isolated 5+ inch area in the Southern California mountains. Already taking a look at the longer range temperature outlook. And as you can see here, this is the same update from yesterday. It hasn't updated yet. But in the west, below average temperatures are expected. Above average temperatures are expected to continue in the southeast region, which that is going to start up later this week. And that's probably going to continue into next week. The first part of this is still relatively cool. We have today's freeze this morning. Then we have the next freeze that's going to come tomorrow morning. But after that, the warm-up finally comes. The Northeast, near normal temperatures. In the 8 to 14 day outlook, like I just said, it's going to continue to be warm in the Southeast. That's going to continue for a while, as we're going to have a ridge that sets up in the east, and along that ridge axis, it's going to be a very active pattern right into next week and even beyond. It's looking like from Texas on up into the Northeast, active weather, the plains and Ohio Valley on southward, multiple severe weather threats will persist in the next week. The West Coast will continue to be below average next week. Taking a look at the precipitation outlook, as you can see, above average precipitation in the west and in the east. Below average precipitation in Texas. And finally, taking a look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, slightly above average in the west, slightly above average in the east, with below average precipitation in Texas. But I can tell you here, let's take a look back at the GFS. So we haven't looked at the GFS yet. I can show you here. Here's next week. And you can see here, the pattern remains active. One system comes through. Here comes another system as we get to the second half of next week. And that's a pretty large-scale system. It produces some stormy weather up north. You also have stormy weather again in the plains on up through the Ohio Valley. That's a severe weather threat. And beyond that, look what happens here. The Northeast does get relatively cold again. So the long range, we have to look at this and say, going into April, this is a trough. This is upper level low over the Great Lakes. That's now April 2nd. And yet again, you're talking another snow threat in the Northeast. So yeah, below average temperatures I'm calling for in the Northeast going into starting April. But in the Southeast, I think it's going to be above average, especially in Florida. You'll definitely have some days where it's in the 80-degree weather. Alrighty, that does it for today's weather update. We'll have another weather update again tomorrow, especially on this late week system, which is going to be problematic. And until then, if you like this content, hit the like button down below. If you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button down below. And I'll see you again next time. If you're in California, stay safe during this next upcoming storm.